Alrighty. Okay. Hello. We're excited to have you here. I want to welcome you to Flatiron School, Real Life Cybersecurity Nightmares. My name is Catherine Sommerfeld. I'm the Director of Marketing Campaigns and Events here at Flatiron School, and part of my team's job is hosting free intro workshops like this evening's or this afternoon's event to give you the opportunity to meet some of our instructors and get a better feel of the Flatiron School experience. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenters for today. We've got Alyssa here representing our admissions team, and Gary Whitsett is here representing our cybersecurity team. So go ahead and take it away, Gary.
Thank you. As Catherine said, my name is Gary Whitsett. I'm the Senior Manager Curriculum Development, which means that I oversee and help create all of the cyber content that we utilize here at Flatirons. And let me give you just a little bit of history on me. I've been around the technology for, let's call it a few years. I started with computers in the early 80s. I've been in cyber since the mid 90s. Over the course of my career, I have done just a little bit of everything and a lot of some of it. But I've done, as far as cybersecurity goes, I've worked in pretty much every discipline. So everything that we're going to talk about today, I have been involved with some aspect of it somewhere through the career. And yes, as Catherine just mentioned, if you do have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. We are watching that, and we'll try to answer questions as best we can in real time as well. So, all right. So today we're going to talk about, one second here. There we go. We're going to talk about a few different areas of cybersecurity. This is all we're going to stay pretty real content here. I've got a couple of use cases we're going to look at. These are real events that have occurred, and then we're going to talk, in general terms about some of the things that come up in these conversations. We're probably going to use some terminology that you've heard before, but we'll make sure that it's well defined so that you can, make sure that everybody understands what we're talking about. The real world nightmares. We've all heard phishing attacks, ransomware, digital privacy. Again, this is real world. This is stuff that is actually happening right now. And to be quite honest, if you're not already aware of all the things that are going on, these things are scary. They're happening all the time. We can't, you can look at the world news right now. We've got a couple of wars going on. We've got a lot of things going on throughout the entire world, not just the wars. We've got the politics, all of that. All of that has a cyber component to it. And if you were really watching everything, it's scary. But I want you to be aware too that as much of a nightmare as it is, it's not going to necessarily affect you day to day, although it might. And a little bit of knowledge can help you, protect yourself from this. So, don't walk away from this thinking that the world's about to end from the cyber side. It is, but it's kind of like Men in Black, right? The threat's always there, but we keep it staved off pretty well. Okay. So I want to start though with some hacker motivations, right? We hear the term hacker a lot, and we probably have an image in our mind of what a hacker actually is. But let's talk about why hackers do what they do. And I'm talking about malicious hackers. The term hacker is often used to indicate the malicious actors, but it can also be used on those of us that are trying to protect the assets and things like that. So when I say hacker here, I'm talking specifically the malicious folks. And there's the political realm, right? The hacktivists, the ones that are out there trying to disrupt websites or systems or infrastructure for whatever political statement they're trying to make. They might be doing some disinformation, right? We hear that a lot. Where people are trying to come in and make false information sound real so that you believe the wrong stuff. That happens far more frequently than we like. And that can be as simple as somebody, saying, hey, I'm this when they're really not. We see that sometimes on Facebook and stuff where somebody will say, hey, I'm a war veteran. And when you dig into it, they really weren't. And then The other one that's again come up a lot recently is the attacks in the war. Um, the hackers are obviously using some of these tools to try to affect the outcome of some of these engagements that are going on. On the business side, obviously the biggest one is financial, and we'll see that that is a primary motivation for a lot of hackers. And then theft of intellectual property, which is really another form of financial gain. If I can get into a company and steal their intellectual property, that can be disruptive on a financial scale. And it may not be that I can benefit directly, but I might be able to cause a competitor to lose money. And then on the social side, obviously there's fame and notoriety, kind of the same thing in a way, but I kind of see it more as fame is kind of more of a public facing, and notoriety I would say is more like within the cyber realm. A hacker that can get some notoriety makes it look like they've got the skills, and maybe they can leverage that for other things. And revenge is another one that we see a lot on the social side. People putting out negative information against somebody who they feel has wronged them. It could be an ex partner or whatever, or it could just be somebody down the street that you're trying to get revenge against. This is not an all-inclusive list, and there are other motivations out there, but I'd say these are some of the bigger, more high-profile ones that we're going to look at. All right, let's jump into cyber espionage unearthed. Right, this is really our systems under attack. Okay. Definition for cyber espionage. This is just I Googled it to see what Google would say, and they said the use of computer networks to gain illicit access to confidential information. Typically, we think about espionage as being against the government or the military, but it can be against big businesses, small businesses, other organizations. Doesn't necessarily have to be the military complex, but that's usually where we think about espionage. So here's a headline. This is from May 25th. This was a Reuters, however you say that. This is an article from them. Chinese hackers spying on U.S. critical infrastructure, Western intelligence says. Right. So this is our intelligence agencies and some of the private companies that are watching, and they're looking at this, and they found evidence of these Chinese hackers spying on our infrastructure. Okay, really good, I think, broad use case within espionage. They called it Volt Typhoon. This Microsoft, I think, came up with the name on this. As you see in the movies, there's usually some kind of code phrase or something that we're using to identify these. In this case, they called it Volt Typhoon. It was a state-sponsored Chinese hacking group. And let me talk just a little bit about what it means to be a state-sponsored hacking group. When you think about hackers, right, one image that usually comes to mind is that 13-year-old disgruntled kid sitting in his basement hacking on his computer trying to get into something. And that is certainly a reality. There are hackers like that. But a state-sponsored group, this is scary because they tend to be extremely well funded. So this would be a country like China actually getting a group of people together, teaching them how to hack, and then funding the hacking activities. So where that kid in the basement may have, he may have a great gaming computer that his folks bought him, and he's using that to hack, and he's pretty good. But imagine that you've got a group of hackers that are well trained, that are coordinated, working together, using a bunch of servers that all work together. The computing power that they have is tremendous, and the knowledge that they have. So now you've got the Chinese government, in this case, their intelligence agencies are feeding these hackers information that helps them to hack even more. Right. So this state-sponsored Chinese hacking group, these are the scary ones, in my opinion. Okay. Microsoft said that the evidence they had on this hacking group, they've been active since at least 2021. And this report came out just recently, so like a couple months back. So that means they've had at least 2 years where they've been in here. And you'll see on the third bullet, Microsoft has said it's mitigating this attack could be challenging. Now, let's think about what these hackers have been doing. They have been in our systems. They have been doing, we don't know what. We know some of the things that they've been doing, but we may not know all of it. So spying is a kind of a broad word here. We don't know what they've been doing. Like for sure, they've been looking at stuff, right? And we'll talk about how that comes together here in a minute. But they may be doing things like elevating privileges, getting accounts that they can use down the road that we may not even know about. So they may be able to come in with an administrator level account and do something at some point. And we're trying to, we're looking at the systems now to see what they can do, see if we can find those, but we may not know everything. That's why mitigating this attack could be challenging, right? For sure, we know that they're looking at stuff, and that is in and of itself scary enough. We also know that they targeted Guam, right, which is an important military base there in Guam. So that is one of the bases that we use to coordinate our efforts in Asia. So they may know things about our capabilities in Asia that we don't want them to know, right? That's certainly part of it. Where we've seen them spying on this, we've seen telecommunications, manufacturing, utility, transportation, and so on down. You can see information technologies on there, government, obviously, and even education. And so why is this in and of itself scary? You think about how these things work, right? Let's just take Guam, for example. Let's say that we have a ship in San Francisco that gets loaded up with supplies and sent over to Guam. Okay, happens all the time, right? If it's a military vessel, there's probably not a lot of public information on that available. But if it's a commercial vehicle that's doing this, and they're watching the commercial transportation lines, right, the transportation information, they may know about this. They may be able to predict an advanced attack or defense that we're putting into place simply by seeing the transportation lines, right? Same thing with construction. They can see, what we're building and where, and they can put this information together. And so a little bit of information, probably okay. But if they start getting lots of information across all these different areas, they can start making some intelligent, connections based off of that information. So little bits of information can add up to a pretty damaging overall view of things. So this is, I think this is one of the scarier ones against our infrastructure. All right, what about the hacking horrors? Right, everyone is a target, but don't worry, you probably aren't. Okay, and again, this is one of those that I think is scary. When we think about everyone being a target, right, we're going to talk about data breaches, and we see, again, data breaches happen all the time. We're going to talk about a few of them, and that means that there's a lot of information that's being gathered, but they're probably not targeting you as an individual unless you have done something to make yourself a target, right? You're out on the public boards spouting off stuff. People may start targeting you. Certainly influencers, they get targeted a lot. Your entertainers, people like that, but also CEOs, CFOs, people that are important within a business, they'll be targeted. But even myself, I get targeted now and again, but I don't get targeted a lot because I'm not out there doing things to make myself a target. And what are we talking about here? When we talk about data breaches, we're talking about personal information, right? Let's go ahead and right, we're talking about any incident that results in access or loss of confidential information, including what we call personally identifiable information, PII. Generally, when we're talking about PII, we're talking about social security numbers, credit card numbers, stuff that is uniquely you, right? But let's think about this for a second. The hospitals, they share data, right? Otherwise, the CDC, right, the Center for Disease Control, they could not monitor flu outbreaks or cold outbreaks, right? They couldn't tell you what the statistics are, how many people are vaccinated, so on, without the data sharing. So the hospitals share the data, but they remove the personal identifying information, right? So my social security number, my name, my address, none of that is released. It's just the demographics, right? But that's scary. Let's think about this. Let's say they share your zip code because the CDC needs to know where in the United States this outbreak is occurring. So your zip codes get shared. And let's just pick a number. Let's say your zip code, there's 10,000 people that live in that zip code. Okay. So you're one of 10,000. Except they then say, all right, well, this age group is 50 to 60-year-olds. Okay. And so now let's think within that 10,000 people, how many are going to be within 50 to 60, right? So maybe the number is 2,000. And they say, well, it's male. You say, okay, about half the population is male, roughly. So now instead of 2,000, it's 1,000. And then they say, maybe your education level, right? And so that narrows it down a little bit further. And maybe they say your income level, and that narrows it down a little further. So out of that 10,000 people, with just a few data points, you may be in a pool of a dozen or two. Okay. So personal identifying information like that is important. And when you look at the data breaches that occur, right, it is often personal data like that that is exposed. Okay. And I mean, I'm sure everybody on the call at some point has gotten one of those letters where they say, hey, our system was breached. Here's a year of free monitoring, whatever. If you're not taking advantage of those free offers, you really should be. So the personal information that goes out, and this is why I say everybody's a target, but you probably aren't, because when they breach these systems and they get hold of millions of people's information, they've got that information, right? But they're probably not targeting you specifically, although we're going to talk about what's changed recently in the environment that may make that more true. Okay. When it comes to like telecoms, one of the big ones that we've seen over the last few years is the SIM switching, where they actually they can call up the Verizon or AT&T or whatever, and they can actually convince the help to change out the SIM card for your account, and now they have direct access to your account, right? I think it's dwindled a little bit recently, but I know for a while there, this was a really big thing. And when you think about what that means, right? When you go down and buy a new phone and they swap out the SIM card with the new phone and they do that little sync and it puts all of your data on the new phone and you don't have to do anything anymore. All your passwords, all your email accounts, all of that is now on your new phone. Well, this is what the hackers have done, except that they've convinced Verizon or whomever to do it. There's, obviously there's ways for them to get that to happen. So this is scary. This is why I do recommend, lock your SIM card, because if your SIM card is locked, they can't do it. You have to unlock it before they can do it, right? Same thing, even if you just turn on the location services, that can stop them from being able to do it. Should be harder for them to do it than it is, but there it is. Phishing attacks, we'll talk about that in more detail here soon. Unauthorized access is another big one. Databases, those database breaches we see, those are the ones that I'm talking about where millions of people are affected. If they can get into your emails, they can get phishing and unauthorized access that way. But another one that's really scary is websites, right? Because in some cases, the hackers don't even need to do anything. A design error in the website can expose your data. And we've seen these kind of breaches where under certain circumstances, a bank may be targeted and they may be able to get into your banking session. So you're actively, checking your bank account and, moving money around, doing whatever you're doing. And they can get into that session and take it over. Okay. Again, it's not completely common. It's not like it's happening all the time, but it does happen. And so that's why, looking for that little lock symbol is important, but also just being aware of, where you're at, what you're doing. So how prevalent is this? So here's a website, tech.co. They have a list of data breaches that they're tracking. This is just September and October this year. Okay. So FreeCycle is an organization that allows people to put like articles up for free, right? Couches or tables, whatever. They had a data breach back in early September, and get my data here. This was millions of user IDs and email addresses were obtained in this breach. And so again, user IDs and emails, you're probably using that same email for multiple access, right? So if they've got that, they at least know your username for all these different sites. That's significant. Topgolf, they had another one that millions of customer data. This was full name, shipping address, email address, phone numbers. It included account passwords, okay, and security question answers. This is scary because if you're reusing a password for access to multiple websites, that password is now compromised, okay? So if you're not routinely changing your password, if you're not routinely using different passwords, I strongly recommend a password manager, 1Password or Norton's password manager. Any of them are decent. They're better than nothing for sure. But use a password manager, use unique passwords on every single website, and you can protect yourself at least from that kind of an attack. Ontario had a birth registry breach where they're saying around 3.4 million people who had any kind of pregnancy care had their information accessed, right? It's the analysis, they said they have more than 2 million babies born during the period that they know about this breach. So that's a lot of personal data to be out there. Sony, 925, they became aware of a breach. Sony gets breached a lot. They're a huge target. And because of how complex their systems are, it's fairly successful. This was a ransomware attack against some of their data. Ransomware is kind of scary too. The two orange ones, this is the ones that have occurred here in October. So this month, 23andMe, if you're not familiar with them, they do that DNA analysis, right? You send them a sample and they analyze your DNA, tell you your history. They got hacked. And one thing that's scary about this particular hack, the hackers were targeting people of Jewish and Chinese descent. So when you think about, I mean, a political motivation, 23andMe would be a huge target for stuff like that. And then there's Air Europa. And I would imagine that very few people on this call have probably ever flown Air Europa. It's a Spanish airline carrier, but there's some aspects of this that I think are really scary. Their breach resulted in credit card numbers, expiration dates, and that 3-digit CVV code. Everything you would need to go online and use that credit card. That was exposed. In fact, Air Europa came back to all of their customers and said, hey, you want to cancel that card and get a new one. Okay. So this to me is extremely scary when I see those kinds of hacks occurring. Verizon did a report. They do these reports fairly often. They call it a data breach investigation report. And oops, sorry. And here's some of the statistics. Sorry. Here's some of the statistics that they came up with from their analysis. And again, this is a recent report. This is a 2023 report. 83% involved external actors. That's not a surprise, right? You're going to find that most data breaches are occurring from outside. But 74% of them involved a human element, social engineering, errors, or misuse. And again, I think errors are particularly scary because these are the ones that we should be able to prevent. We on the cybersecurity side of things, we should be able to be preventing the errors. It does occur. I mean, errors occur, but this is what we strive to get right. Social engineering. You can see the next statistic here. 50% of social engineering attacks are called pretexting incidents. This is an incident that has pretext. So this could be, for example, you get that email from your CFO that says, hey, I'm at this conference and I need this information, or I need you to do this. Um, and the reality is, it's probably not your CFO or CEO contacting you. It is somebody hoping that you'll respond to this email, right? That's a pretext. It could also be some of the phishing emails, right? They're giving you this scenario. It sounds legitimate, and so you respond to it as if it were, right? Another example might be you get an email from again, CFO, CEO, or your manager or a coworker, and it says, "Hey, here's a report that I've prepared. Can you go in and validate the data in this report?" So you click on the link for that report, or you open the attachment. That's a pretexting incident, right? There's a pretext around it. Compare this to say the other phishing emails and stuff that you see where, hey, here's some cute puppies, right? Click on the video to see them. That's not. I mean, it's a kind of a pretext, but it's not one that you're gonna feel pressured to look at. 49% of these involve the use of stolen credentials. We talked a minute ago about how easy it is to get credentials. Even just knowing your username can be detrimental. Imagine this scenario, right? So I found a legitimate username, and from outside your website, I log in and I put in a password, and it comes back, of course, and says, "Hey, wrong password." Great. So I try another one, right? Comes back and says, "Nope, that's not it either." And I try another one, and says, "Nope, that's not it." And maybe after 5 of these, it says, "Well, sorry, your account's locked. You got to wait 10 minutes before you can try again," right? Or worse, it says you've got to call the help desk and get them to reset your account. Okay. Now imagine the scenario where I figure out it's a first dot last name at your company. And so I get hold of a list of people that work at your company, maybe through Facebook or LinkedIn or something like that. I get this big long list, and I go through and I start doing that to every single account. I can lock all those accounts for 10 minutes, right? Not a big disruption, but it is a disruption. Those people will not be able to log in, even with a legitimate password, while their accounts are locked. And if it requires that help desk call to unlock it, it's more than 10 minutes, right? It's until those people get in there and get that help desk call. 12% of external attacks use some kind of phishing, right? Again, those are the emails. There's some interesting ones on this, right? If you've probably seen these recently on your phone, where you get a text message that says, "Hey, Michael, you still interested in selling that property at whatever location?" And you're like, "No, I'm not Michael, and I don't own a property there." So you respond and say, "Hey, sorry, wrong number." Guess what? They just phished you, right? Best response there is none. Don't respond to those kind of phishing. I usually delete them and mark them, flag them as spam. It's just if they can get you to talk, they may be able to talk you into something. Okay. And again, 95% of breaches are financially driven. So there's money involved. There's big money in these kind of scams. Okay. AI and the Cyber Menace. Let's bow to the digital overlords. They are here, and they are here to stay. Okay. Whether you like AI or not, it is a fact of business now. In fact, 35% of businesses have adopted some form of AI. This is according to authorityhacker.com. They got some AI statistics. 35% have adopted some form of AI. 77% of all devices in use feature some form of AI, right? This is nothing new. We've had AI for many, many years. The rise of ChatGPT and some of the others that have come about in the last year or so, this is a new level. But if you think about, the iPhone has had Siri, Google has had Alexa. These are all AI, right? Even the Google, where you go in and start typing, and the search engine comes up and says, "Hey, is this what you're looking for?" And they are pre-filling in the rest of that data. That's a form of AI, right? So AI has been around for 15, 20 years, in its current forms. But the chat GPT with the natural language processing and some of the newer technologies, that's where it's changed the landscape quite a bit. 9 out of 10 organizations are supporting AI for competitive advantage, and it's thought that AI will contribute $15.7 trillion to the global economy within the next 10 years, right? By 2030 even. So this is huge. It's here to stay. We can't fight it, but what we can do is try to protect against it. Now, just to show you, a little bit, if you haven't played around with AI at this point, I actually went into ChatGPT and I asked it this question: how does AI aid business? And this is the 10 that it came up with. Notice number one is automation. Now, again, we've had automation for decades, right? And automation in of itself is again not new. We have had robots and think about car manufacturing, things like that. That automation has been around for many years. What's different with the newer AI, we don't have to do the automation. We can have the automation create itself now. So we're seeing this more and more. You think about when you've got Alexa or you've got Siri and you go in there and have it create scripts, right? Have it program itself for automation. That's what we're talking about, but it's on a new scale. The data analysis, and this is again where I think the previous conversation about personal information. So it used to be if I were a hacker and I got in and did a data breach and I got millions of records, right? I don't have the time or resources to go in and start targeting individuals unless I know specifically which individual I'm looking for, right? So I might go in and look for a CEO or CFO or an entertainer or something like that. But with AI, we can do data analysis. Now, on the good side, the business side, this is how when you do your Google search, the next thing you know, your Facebook feed is popping up ads for whatever you just searched for, right? Vacation in Bahamas. Yep, here's vacation websites coming up, right? That's data analysis. But it's also the one where for years, Google has been able to diagnose your health problems better than your doctor can, because you've gone in and you've searched for this symptom and that symptom, and you didn't realize those symptoms were related, but Google did. Okay. Personalization, customer service, predictive analytics, like we mentioned a minute ago with Google searching, they can come up and assume what you're about to search for, so they can do the auto completion on that. Fraud detection is another interesting one. When you think about this, right? So if I physically scan my credit card in my hometown, and then an hour later that card gets physically scanned in, say, Spain, right? The fraud detection can see that, and it can say, hey, there's no way somebody went from Colorado to Spain inside of an hour, right? So that kind of fraud detection. But this is also the one where maybe you've gotten a call from your bank or your credit card company, and they said, hey, we're seeing some unusual spending habits on your card. Is this legit? Right, so maybe I use my card every week to fill my tank with gas, and that's all I ever use it for. Maybe occasionally I eat out, and then all of a sudden I'm buying high-end electronics with that card. They'll say, yeah, no, that's not common, right? So the AI is able to see those patterns and do the analysis, again, the data analysis number 2 there, and see this unusual fraud or unusual spending and say, hey, let's try to nip this quickly. Productivity, innovation, cost reduction, competitive advantage. Hopefully you're seeing these benefits from AI at this point. So then I thought, well, all right, this is how AI aids business. How does AI benefit the hacker? So again, I put this into ChatGPT and asked this question. And you'll notice number 1 is automated attacks again, right? So automation on the business side, automated attacks on the hacker side. If you haven't heard the term script kiddie before, a script kiddie is an inexperienced hacker who goes out on the web and finds somebody else's hack and implements it, right? It's a script, right? They say, okay, if you do this and this and this and this, you'll get in, right? Or they may have to do a little bit of research and say, hey, I'm trying to get into, a Linux system or a Windows system, and here's the details. And somebody else will say, hey, here's what you need to know. With AI, we're elevating that. We're saying now we can use the AI engines to help create these automated attacks. And so I don't have to have any knowledge, any skills. I can have AI do this, right? Advanced phishing is another one, right? So where in the past we would have said, hey, read the phishing email. If you're seeing spelling or grammar errors, probably a phishing attack. Now they've got AI that goes in, Grammarly, for example, can go in and clean up the grammar on that. So those phishing attacks look more legit. Targeted attacks, the same thing, right? I can use AI to scan through Facebook or LinkedIn and get more information than I would otherwise have. And now I can make the context of that attack much more, apropos. So evasion of security measures, social engineering. If you're not familiar with social engineering, again, this is another one that's pretty scary. One of my favorite examples, if you're familiar with the movie Sneakers, there's a great scene right in the middle of that movie where the good guys are trying to break into this building. And so the way they do this is they know there's a security guard and they know there's badge access. So they have one of their members go in and pretend to be a delivery person. I think he's got like 6 or 8 cases of Drano, right? So he goes up and he starts arguing with the security guard on who's supposed to be receiving this Drano, because the order came, they're saying the order came from inside. Well, while he's arguing with the security guard, another member comes in carrying a birthday cake and a bunch of balloons. And he goes over to the badge area, and of course his hands are full, so he can't badge in, right? So he hollers over to the security guard, hey, can you badge me in? I'm late for this party. And the security guard goes, hey, wait a minute, and keeps arguing with the delivery guy. The other guy keeps pressuring him, and eventually the security guard, out of frustration, just buzzes him in, right? This is social engineering. This is, understanding people's psychology, things like that, and finding ways around it in a, social setting like that. Very, very important. It happens a lot. Social engineering is one of the biggest ways that hackers gain information. The others on here: data theft, password cracking. Again, this is all stuff that should start making sense. Deep fake technology. We've all seen these recent videos where it looks like one person is saying and doing things, and it's really just computer technology making this. If you followed the actors strike recently, and the writer strike, that was one of the things that they were arguing against. If you remember, Carrie Fisher died before the last movie came out, and they were able to use the AI technology to put her in a movie that she didn't actually film for, right? So it's come a long ways where we can actually do that. Automated ransomware attacks. Ransomware are kind of crazy. So this is a Forbes report. Again, it came out this year, came out in June. Some of the biggest risks of artificial intelligence. I know a lot of us are probably really scared about AI. We've given it a lot of thought, especially recently, as we've seen companies start saying, oh, well, we're replacing entire teams with AI. But notice, according to Forbes, job displacement is number 8 on this list. So it's pretty far down there, right? Some of the bigger concerns: number 2, bias and discrimination; number 3, privacy concerns. These are actually ones that scare me more than the job displacement. I don't believe AI is going to replace the majority of us. There's going to be certain jobs that get replaced, but for most part, I think AI is just going to supplement the work that we do, make some of the work that we do easier. Again, you saw what I did earlier with the Google searches or the ChatGPT searches to help me put this presentation together. We do use AI in our day-to-day job, but I would never have AI write any of the content that I put together. I will have it summarize it. I'll have it give me outlines to make sure that I'm not missing any points, things like that. But I'm not being replaced by AI anytime soon. Number 4, the ethical dilemmas. That's another one that scares me, right? When you've got kids writing their report for school using ChatGPT, that's inappropriate. That's ethical. If you have it outline, the salient points, that's, much more of a gray area, or even on the good side of the ethics. And you can see down through this list. I mean, I'm not going to read all these to you, but You can go out to Forbes and find this article if you want to read the details on this. Okay. Now, we did say AI versus the Cyber Menace. There we go. Oops. So what is the Cyber Menace? Well, the Cyber Menace has been around for many years, right? So again, malware, phishing, hacking. But where we're at now, AI is adding a level of sophistication to all of these. Malware would be viruses, things like that, software that actually gets installed on your system that causes harm. The phishing attacks we know, hacking attempts we've talked about. So the AI is just allowing us to do this better, more efficiently, or I say us, the hackers, to do this better, more efficiently from their perspective. Okay. So what do we do about this? Well, that's where the guardians of the digital realm come in. Okay. I like the phrase, they only need to get it right once. We have to get it right all the time. What we mean here is, and this is why AI is scary in this realm. If I'm a hacker, I can try 100, 1,000 different things looking for the one that is successful. But if I'm a protector, I have to protect everything. If I make a mistake, if I miss something, then that is a hole that the hackers can get through. Right. So we have to try to get it right all the time. They only need to get it right once. So you'll see in movies, this is a real thing, a security operations center. This kind of what it looks like. This is where your cyber analysts work, right? This is the frontline defense and monitoring using cybersecurity tools and techniques. So think about it in terms of that nation state, like we talked about earlier, but this is the good guys, right? This is the NSA, CIA, other agencies. This is the people that are doing the right things, looking for these hacks. We talked about the Microsoft looking at that Volt breach from China. This was their security team monitoring and finding this information, right? Large businesses do this. Many large businesses have their own security operations center on premises. And then smaller companies might use a managed service provider to do this. But again, this is the monitoring. This is watching for the activities that are suspicious, doing the investigations, and trying to find the activity before it causes damage. So who does this? This is your security analysts, right? They identify, analyze, and mitigate risks. This is some of the activities that they might do. Security monitoring, incident response, security assessments, compliance is a big one. I think probably the most important on this list, security awareness training, second bullet up from the bottom. These are all the things that a security analyst might be doing on the job, and these are all critical for identifying, analyzing, and mitigating the risks. When it comes to the analysts, it's constant vigilance, right? We can't let our guard down ever. We have to always be monitoring and always be looking for it. Another phrase that we use a lot is assume that the inside or the hackers are already inside your organization. It's just a matter of finding them. Okay, especially the larger organizations. If Sony doesn't feel like they're breached, they're wrong. They are breached. They just don't know about it yet. Okay. The security engineer is the other side of this. They're the ones that are designing and implementing the security solutions. So again, they might be doing secure architectures. They might be using encryption technologies. Again, they're involved with incident response. They help create security policies and procedures and so on and so forth, right? So again, I'm not going to read the list to you. You can read it. Both the security analyst and the security engineer are jobs that we are specifically helping students to prepare for. So if you come through our program, these are the two jobs in particular that we're trying to get you into. All right, so cyber world's ever changing. We're always seeing new threats, new opportunities. Like AI is a good example of that. It's relatively new, at least in its current form. Something that we've had to adapt to, but it's also something that we need to protect against. So the need for cyber awareness, critical, right? So I appreciate everybody being here today and looking at this. This kind of knowledge is going to help you significantly. And then the need for cyber warriors is of utmost importance, right? That you always see the job statistics that say there's so many cybersecurity jobs available, It's because we always need new talent coming in. If you sat through this presentation, if you understood the things that I said, you're a good candidate, right? People think that cyber is hard to get into. It is, but it isn't. If you've got some knowledge, getting in is really not that difficult. It's gaining that initial knowledge and that initial experience to help you on the job. Okay. And with that, let's open it up for some Q&A.
So the one thing I did see come through while you were talking, Gary, is Alex posted about the booking.com breach, which looks like it's very, very recent because that article is dated Monday.
Yep. I have heard about it. I have not yet gone in and looked at it. But yeah, it's and just looking at, so booking.com, right? That means they're probably going to have personal identifying information. They might have credit card information. And so, yeah, without having looked at it, I'm not sure the details, but yep, scary stuff. And again, if you watch the news, you will see these kind of articles come up a lot. I highly encourage you to read up on them, especially if it's a company that you do business with.
Yeah, I skimmed the article while you were talking, and it sounds like what they are doing is sending fake confirmation emails out that look like they're coming from no reply at booking, and they have all the booking details. So people are putting their credit card numbers in because they're saying they're going to cancel the reservation otherwise.
Yeah, I've seen a rise in that. I've seen a bunch of those come from Netflix and similar sites recently as well. You know, let me tell you one that this is a fun one. So a friend of mine is in a local group and on Facebook, and it's supposed to be a members only group. You're supposed to you get approved on there, and they offered up an item for sale that this person wanted. And they said, okay, great. So they contacted the seller independently, and the seller came back and went, yep, I use PayPal. Okay, I use PayPal, no problem. So they sent a payment through PayPal. And immediately they got a text message back that said, hey, the payment was declined. Can you send it again? So they did. They sent it a second time. Now they didn't log into PayPal and verify. They took the text message at face value. And so the person came back and went, well, this is obviously not working. Can you try Venmo instead? So they did it through Venmo. And they got it, the same exact message back from Venmo. This is when my friend contacted me and said, Gary, this doesn't sound right. I said, it's a scam. If you go check your account, you just paid 3 times for an item that you're never going to get. And sure enough, that was exactly what happened. So, you know, these kinds of you know, again, it's a form of phishing email, right? It's context. This person was supposed to be trustworthy. They're in this private group. You can't trust them. So, yeah, my biggest thing is, you know, when I say constant vigilance, also question everything, right? If you know, if you get something from booking.com and it says, hey, you know, whatever the situation is, click here, don't click there. Go into your browser, go to booking.com and look at it directly. Go to PayPal, go to Venmo, verify these things. I guarantee if there's a problem, they're not going to text message you like that, right? You really need to be very vigilant and go in and research it. Don't trust anything. So I appreciate the thanks online. I'm glad people are finding this helpful.
There was one more question I saw in there about getting a job after the program since it's not accredited for government jobs. I think you touched a little bit on the different types of roles that we prepare for, Gary, but do you have anything additional on that?
Sure. I live in Colorado Springs. We have 4 military bases right here, a lot of government contractors. They do employ our folks. Now, if you've come out of the military and you have an active clearance, you come through our program, you go get the Security Plus certification. That opens up those two together, the clearance with Security Plus. opens up a whole lot of jobs. Beyond that, just getting through our program, even if you don't have the security clearance, but if you are looking at government jobs, again, that Sec Plus, that Security Plus certification, that opens up a lot of doors just by itself. So yeah, it is very possible to go straight from here into government jobs. I'm not promising NSA or CIA is going to come knocking, but you won't know unless you try.
Yeah, and our career coaches, I just dropped that link in about a little bit more about career services, but our career coaches will work specifically with you too to like make a plan for that, because we definitely have had alum that have gone into those certain areas. So they might have a good game plan for you guys as well as to, what that looks like. So definitely don't count us out if that's the route that you want to go.
And
Excellent.
there's my email address. Again, I put up the Flatiron School. You can go to that website as well. But if you have any further questions that you want to ask me directly, I feel free to email me, and I'll do my best to get back to you as quick as I can.
Thank you so much, Gary.
Oh,
And
sure.
thank you to everybody who zoomed in to join us today. If you have any further questions about Flatiron School, Alyssa is dropping a whole bunch of useful links into the chat right now. And you can talk to our admissions team. Obviously, Gary shared all his information. You can find me on LinkedIn. As a reminder, you will receive a copy of today's presentation after the event. It'll also be on our YouTube. And if you'd like to see any previous events, you can head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your day.